Welcome back to Impact Show, coming to you live, not live, recorded, but to you it's live, from Wahoo's original location right here in Costa Mesa, California. I'm here with a beloved leader of Orange County, California, not just here, but a little bit around the world too, Mr. Wing Lam. You've been a friend of mine for over 20 years. You've been supporting me, and I can't wait to get into our story. And how we like to start these impact interviews is to really just tell our audience a little bit about your background. So if you could just go into that, that'd be awesome.
I'm originally from Brazil, of all places. Thank God my parents left communist China after World War II, went to Brazil, and then came to California, of all places in America. So back in the 70s, we kind of cruised around, tried to assimilate into the California lifestyle, did okay. And then after graduating from college, my brothers and I looked around and said, hey, maybe we should do something with our parents' restaurant. Not our deal. Right. But then we said, hey, maybe we can do something that we love, which is surfing. Right. And it was, well, we're not good surfers, but maybe we can do something in the food side, which is what we're good at.
Right.
And that's the idea for Wahoo's.
And tell me a little bit about your parents' restaurant. What kind of food do they serve?
My parents still have the Chinese restaurant on Balboa Island, the Shanghai Pine Garden. Oh, awesome. It's been there since 1970.
Okay.
Yeah.
So food has always been in your sort of bloodstream, and it passed down to you and your siblings. And then you guys came upon this amazing pop cultural iconic restaurant called Wahoo's. Tell me a little bit about how you went from sort of this Chinese flair into fish tacos and how it gave birth to this.
Well, basically, we're good at Chinese food, but we just, we grew up doing it, right?
Yeah.
So, but it wasn't fun. It was work.
Right.
But we love, every time we went somewhere fun, Mexico, Hawaii, it was always like the after stuff that we did surfing. Right. So, in Mexico, it's fish tacos. Hawaii is the plate lunches.
Right.
So I said, why isn't anybody doing it here?
Right. And so, we have thousands of entrepreneurs that watch our channel and watch this show. It just seems so easy to come up with a restaurant theme and then to have this wild success. I mean, you have over 50 locations nationwide now. I mean, what was the precipice of starting a restaurant, and how did you make that successful but also sustainable and significant? Because there's a difference between success, right?
Yeah.
We all know that.
Yeah.
But sustainable is almost the impossible. And how do you create something like Wahoo's and create that sustainable success over time?
Well, the thing is, you talk about reinventing. First, the creation part. Why? Find something that isn't there already. So for us, there are plenty of Mexican restaurants, plenty of Asian restaurants, but nobody was doing something very specific to the surf industry, which is fish tacos. So first we found that. So that was our signature thing. It was an afterthought. That was front and center. So once we got that, really the key is that you always talk about synergies. Partnerships is really what it came down to. So we were able to really quickly, partners with the companies like Billabong, Quicksilver, O'Neill, Gotcha, back the big surf brands in the 80s.
Right.
So having that partnership kind of really expanded the brand, and then having the family, all of us kind of working together.
Right.
And then the idea is there's only two ways you can reinvent yourself. You got to come up with a new product every 6 months, every year, kind of a thing, which can be very kind of time consuming and and it complicates everything.
Right.
Or you have new ambassadors.
Right.
So we just said, hey, let's take a chance, find some cool surfers that we can have as our ambassadors.
Right.
And that pipeline just kept going.
Right.
And then we got the skaters, the snowboarders, the BMX. So having these ambassadors kind of tell the story that they just found out about it kind of keeps you fresh.
Right.
So we got the 50-year-old nows and we got the 12-year-olds. So.
Sure. And think about that for the Impact audience and all of our IMA Global members. So you start an idea, you have a company, you have a restaurant, you have an organization. Build off other people's successful brands. That's how we started the IMA. We started associating ourselves with people like Wayne, and we built an advisory board. Microsoft, Google, Amazon, those people are on our board. So our brand actually lifted from those billion, trillion dollar brands, and it pulled us up. And much like kind of the way that I led the organization, you're very much a relationship person.
Yep.
And so you had action sports celebrities, you had brands like Billabong, Quicksilver. These are unattainable doors to get into. How did you do that with your relationships? Because that's so key to you, is think about the relationships you have with those leaders and those brands, and how do you get in that door?
Well, back in the 80s, a surf contest looked like nothing, like a tent on the beach. There was no sponsors outside of the industry.
Right.
Nobody had any money. So I said, well, why don't you guys have a hospitality space? And they said, what are you talking about? There's no budget for it. Goes, well, maybe we can barter. You guys got no money left, but you got t-shirts and shorts. So why don't we trade out? My staff could use that as uniform. So we basically started bartering with all the brands. And it became this thing where the kids found out about the food, because when you come out of the water, you're starving to death.
Right.
The first thing
Right.
you grab is like, aha.
Yeah.
So it was one of those where the food was good.
Sure.
But when you have nothing else, it became this amazing experience.
Right, right.
So we did it with all the sports.
Sure.
And then somewhere like in the early 90s, all the garage bands that we started helping out became the Blink-182s, the offsprings of the world.
Right.
So it was the same thing, as they were unknown when they had no budget.
Right.
We were there. And then when they rose to the top, we were still there.
Right, right. And I love what you say about barter, because sometimes it's not about putting money in people's pocket. Sometimes you could put food. What I did was I put websites. I would do websites for people for free, and that got me in the door. Jim Doty of Chapman University, when we first built chapman.edu, the internet didn't exist. I had the skill of doing HTML and built Chapman's first website with Dr. Fahey at Chapman, and that opened a great relationship with Jim Doty, which then launched the IMA. So similarly, you were able to barter out things like, you know, food. I mean, everyone needs food.
Yeah.
Now let's go into food. I've grown up eating Wahoo's fish taco, okay? I've had thousands of fish tacos, and it really like makes me feel good. I don't feel like I'm weighted down and feel gross after I eat. I feel healthy, I feel motivated, I feel full, and it tastes so good. How do you achieve that? Because you're not a fast food restaurant, you're not a fine dining restaurant, you're somewhere in that fast casual yet healthy environment. How were you able to cook all that up? Because that takes a little bit of brilliance. Tell me a little bit about that.
It's basically, you know, the way you cook at home.
Yeah.
One, you don't have time.
Right.
You don't want to have time for sauces, all the, you know, the beautiful things you do at a fine dining restaurant. You just want to eat good food.
Right.
So the whole idea is clean it up, make it as simple as possible.
Right.
And when you have simple foods that are clean, that taste good, it naturally doesn't weigh you down, makes you feel good, because you don't have a lot of time to digest all that stuff.
Right.
So the key is simple, clean, fresh. That's it.
Right, right. And over time, I mean, it's been decades that your restaurant has been around. I think you guys were in that 1988 you founded.
Yep.
So over time, has the menu changed much? And if it has, why?
The only things that has changed is the addition to like the gluten-free stuff. You know, there's all of these, you know, vegetarians. So there's other people that say, hey, if you got fish, why not do shrimp?
Right.
Or if you got fish, why not do salmon?
Right.
So we said, you know what? Okay, great idea. Why not give them more options? But the core menu, the chicken, the beef, the pork, and the fish, it's pretty much the same as it was. Yeah.
So obviously we are the Internet Marketing Association. Marketing is a big deal, right? When it comes to brand. I used to come into Wahoo's Fish Taco, you know, I live in San Clemente, and the place was covered with stickers. And a lot of people that own restaurants or franchises would probably be very specific on, you know, don't touch our walls, no graffiti, no nothing. But you guys kind of welcome that.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the integration and welcoming people's expression and how you're allowed to just be able to just stick stickers on the wall and express yourself? I think that's interesting.
In the surf industry, in the action sports industry, everything that's a sticker base is the way of tagging, that's my spot.
Right.
So by allowing all the brands to bring it, it made it their spot.
Sure.
So it went from stickers to, you know, posters to surfboards. So everything that's here is by somebody we know. Right. And it becomes their second home.
That's awesome. I absolutely love that. And going back to menu, you know, I look at a Wahoo's Fish Taco menu, and it's not complicating, yet it's not so simple as In-N-Out, yet it's not so complex as the Cheesecake Factory. How do you find that perfect delta? And finding that there's not too much and there's not too little, because from a marketing standpoint, a lot of our viewers are curious to that kind of thing.
It's like, I never know. Some days I feel like we have too much, some days I feel like we don't have enough.
Right.
But at the end of the day, the number one item we still go out when we do the events, whatever that may be, is still fish tacos.
Right, right.
Because, you know, you can get a burger anywhere, you can get a chicken here, but when we show up, we're grilling fish tacos, and that's what people want.
Now, let's talk a little bit about your workforce. I've been going to the same Wahoos in San Clemente for 20 years, and a lot of the people that work there are the same people that have been there through that time.
Oh, yeah.
How do you instill that empowerment among your workforce through all the changes that we go through in the world, you know, personally and professionally?
Yeah.
What's the culture within the organization, and how do you lead that motivation among your workforce?
The big thing is lead by example. So we're always there with them. We were never going to ask any of our staff from the top to the bottom to do anything that we're not willing to do ourselves.
Right.
So we're always there with them. So it's one part to work alongside them, and it's that I call it the tough love. At the other side, give them the leeway to be creative, hire their people, do all that,
right.
and then also reward them. So it's this constant balance between rewarding, holding the leash a little bit, and accountability. So, we have all the metrics in place.
Right.
So this is what we expect, and this is what you get. So it's constantly, right, but showing the gratitude that we have for them for being here.
Right.
So Roberto at San Clemente has been with us almost since the store opened.
Right. And the minute the door opens, they recognize me
Yes.
all the way from the kitchen. And then when you leave, they say goodbye.
Yeah.
And those are the sort of little details that I think it's really important to personalize your brand and to think beyond just the basics and to go outside the box. And that sort of love is very effective, and it makes you want to come back because you don't feel like you're just getting a fish taco. You feel like you're seeing your extended family.
Exactly.
That's very rare to find in any sort of restaurant. So Wing, as we kind of wrap up this segment of our interview, part of what impact is, in my opinion, is the adversity that leaders face. I run a multinational organization, lots of employees, lots of clients, partners, and such. And to be an effective leader, you've got to be able to stand up to adversity in tough times.
Yep.
Now, we know that leading this enterprise and all these employees and everything that you've gone through, you've probably faced some really tough times. In those times of adversity or tough transitions, how do you pick yourself up and keep going? Okay, if you have something going on at a restaurant or with an employee, how do you pick yourself up and fight through that?
Well, bottom line is, if you freak out, everybody freaks out.
Right.
So there's no point of panicking, right?
Exactly.
So again, the example thing. So you can be panicking inside, goes, oh my God, there's gas prices going through the roof.
Right.
There's the fires, there's the mortgage, there's the, all the things, all the bubbles that have burst in the last 30 years.
Right.
You just kind of sit back, gather your thoughts and just think it through.
Right.
Right. That's it. That's it. Don't panic. Don't react.
Right.
Just think it through.
Sure.
That's what you got to do.
And leadership is so much action and not position. So the way as leaders we act, that's how it's interpreted by all our stakeholders, be it our employees, our family, our clients, whatever that may be. How we react to any situation is how they're probably going to interpret and react themselves. That's a really good piece of advice. And as we conclude and transition into a very special project that you started and has now emanated throughout a lot of businesses and friends of ours, tell us a little bit about philanthropy and give back, because ever since I met you, which was over 20 years ago, we went on the Chapman University stage, talked about entrepreneurship way back then. We were like smaller versions of where we're at today. It's very interesting to see that along the way, you've always been there for people.
Yeah.
You've always made the time. And a lot of people, when they reach certain levels of success, they get busy or they have certain things and opportunities, but you've always made time to giving back. Tell us why that's so important to you and why that's so important in the journey of success.
Well, the thing is, before there was that acronym CSR, Corporate Social Responsibility, before there was cause marketing, before there was any of that, charities were always in existence. So it was just one of those where we thought, hey, we should do it. But the old model was always, hey, donation, dial-a-thon, whatever it was just purely that. And I came in and says, well, I could write you a check for $250.
Right.
But if I came in and I provided the service instead, you just knocked off $2,500 off your bill from this event.
Sure.
Well, you still want the $250, and they're like, whoa.
Right.
And so we kind of started showing them that the bartering service part, right? Because and plus our logo would have been about this big in the program.
Sure.
Whereas if we were able to be on site, we would have the tent, the umbrellas, and the whole presence, and actually engage with the charity and all the directors and all that. So I said it's a lot more work, by the way. Right. But it got us in the front of all of our friends.
Absolutely.
And that changed the whole model, and then we started bringing all of our other friends because this is a much better way to do it. You can still write a check, there's nothing wrong.
Sure.
But if you're upfront and personal, I think you get a lot more out of it.
Absolutely. And for the thousands of young entrepreneurs that are watching, that are starting a business, an AI company, a restaurant, what's your advice on starting a business and the 2 or 3 things that you've learned that you would love to pass on?
The big thing is treat your vendors, your suppliers, like they're your family.
Right.
Don't think of nickel and diming them because they're in the same business as you are.
Sure.
So having that great relationship helps you in times like right now.
Right.
When nobody can get toilet paper,
Right.
you can get toilet paper.
Yeah.
So you got to have a good relationship with your vendors, right? It's a two-way relationship. And then partner with your friends, other companies. And again, it's kind of hard to partner with another restaurant, but there's no reason why you couldn't partner with a coffee house, a yogurt company. So people that kind of complement and not necessarily, distract you. And we have a great partnership with all those guys today.
Right.
So it's one of those where, we want to promote people to dine out.
Right.
So whatever sector you're in, kind of help people, get that service. That's what we're in there for.
Awesome. And one last question, it's more of a personal question. What's your favorite thing to eat at Wahoo's Fish Taco?
Rice and beans and fish tacos.
That's it. Okay, pretty simple guy. And we've all gone through some unprecedented craziness in the last year and a half with the pandemic. And I've been able to kind of watch all the leaders of the county, the state, the country, the world, and how they adapted to that. And instead of just kind of going into defense mode, you went into offense mode.
Yes.
And you did something a little bit out of the box and created this amazing organization and this more of a movement of Love Drop, where you're getting connected with first responders and healthcare workers and bringing every relationship you have to the center of this. And can you tell us a little bit about that and then maybe introduce your partners that are here today?
Okay, so kind of like back in 1988, when I only had like 20 or 30 customers coming in a day, I kind of said, well, where are all my customers? They're at the beach. So I started going to do surf events, right? So when the pandemic hit, we literally in 2 days lost 85% of our business. So I'm like, where are they at? And we knew that all the first responders were working. So the people at distribution centers for supermarkets, for instance, the people at the hospitals, fire department, all that. So I called all my friends and say, what are you guys doing? Because all of the events got canceled. So the Monsters, the Hands, immediately like Yogurtland, they're like, we're doing nothing. So then I said, okay, we also need a little bit of the PR. So I go, hey, Wendy, what are you guys doing? Because the radio station, everybody got followed. So everybody that I knew was kind of like doing nothing. And then my buddy Charles said, hey, what are you guys doing? I goes, hey, Charles, come out with us. Let me show you what we're doing. Because in order to do this, we needed some funds. Because we were tapped out. So we kind of did a few just to kind of try it out, took some photos, shared it with my team. And they're like, you're crazy, but there's nothing else going on. So the California Love Drop was created by Wendy from KLOS, who's here. And then my buddy Charles from Antis was like, okay. And then in order for us to show people, I know Jennifer came up with the idea, goes, why don't you guys actually have labels on the outside of these brown bags?
There you go.
Because we had these tiny little circles that says chicken. But it didn't say where it came from. So Jennifer goes, I think we should have some labels to explain.
There you go.
So on the label, we started adding all of our partners. And that became the California Love Drop. And they're all here because without them, this would not work.
Awesome. So why don't them come out here and join us in the next segment of our interview. Hey, back to you. So Impact Show is not just about impact and entrepreneurship and leading a company like Wahoo's. It's about impact on your community. What Wing touched on about what to do in a time of crisis. And instead of going inward and just kind of sheltering himself around crisis, he said, you know what, we're going to get engaged with our community. We're going to use our relationships the same way we founded Wahoo's Fish Taco to help the first responders and to help our community. So joining us is Charles, Wendy, and Jennifer, 3 awesome leaders that do completely different things here in Orange County, and how they were able to come together and create this amazing ripple effect. I'm going to start with you first, Charles. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with this and what it means to you?
Well, I'm Charles Antis, the founder and CEO at Antis Roofing and Waterproofing, and I got involved because I always trust Wing, because we support a lot of nonprofits, and when things were shut down, I went to one of his restaurants, and it wasn't open yet, and I called him, and he said, hey, if he cut me up, I called him to ask him if I could help, but he beat me and said, let's go deliver some tacos, and that's how I got involved, with bringing tacos to frontliners at hospitals, police, and fire.
Awesome, and you've been involved, I mean, you're like known around corporate social responsibility. What's the fire in you that's always been investing into the community? Just curious. I mean, you're a business owner, but why do you go so far into the community? What drives you?
Well, it just, my dad, when I was young, he always said, do the right thing. And as soon as I was able to, I wondered if I could do more with the profits of the business. And as I experimented, sometimes out of generosity and sometimes out of desperation, I discovered that our company, our culture, our brand, our job security, every part of our business and our brand and our image was rising.
Awesome.
And our quality.
Awesome. Well, you're a great example, and we'll share Charles and everyone's information with our audience because he's a great example of you don't have to be in this billion-dollar financial world or cryptocurrency or have this significant, massive enterprise in order to make an impact. He's in roofing and waterproofing. He has a huge company. But it doesn't matter what industry you're in, you could have impact on your community. He's a great resource to be connected to. Wendy, tell me a little bit about your background and the radio station and how you guys got involved. This is really cool.
No problem. I'm Wendy Ellis. I'm with KLOS FM. And much to the story that Wing was describing before about how he networks and works with people, we've been working together for a while. Whenever we needed something with the station, if we ever needed one to step up and feed anybody, Wing was like, let me do it. We partnered together for St. Jude Rocks and raised over $1 million for St. Jude. So we've worked in the past. And when everything went home, we're quarantined. I reached out to him knowing that he was doing out doing some good, and we partnered together. And so that's kind of my history. I've been in the music industry for a good 20-some years. I worked for a Golden Voice and done Stagecoach and Coachella. I do festival events, so it was a really good tie-in doing this charity
And tell
together.
me about how the radio as a medium was used to communicate the work that Love Drop was doing, and what does it mean to you? And tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it means it's so special to me because it's been so good for all of us and for our charity. Our morning show, Heidi and Frank, wanted to be involved right away. And so they have, not only do they kind of financially help things at the beginning, we need to get out there and buy some way overpriced bottles on the internet to put all this donated organic Drake's Organics hand sanitizer, and they stepped in right there. And then they weekly have allowed a platform for Wing and all of us to be on as we give updates about a California Love Drops, talk about GoFundMe donations to our account. They've really been fueling us along the whole time.
We have a vast audience of internet marketers, and radio as a medium is really interesting because when the internet came, you had television, radio, and then internet came. Now, radio seems to be as relevant now as it was 30 years ago. How has it traveled through this paradigm of mediums, and how is the internet working with radio to broadcast messages?
I mean, those are really good points and really good questions. Radio's done really surprisingly well. Even surprised us during COVID. I'll just step back to the most latest thing is when COVID hit, I'll tell you, every radio station panicked. It means nobody's in cars. No one's going to listen to radio. Instead, the opposite happened, and radio and ratings went skyrocketing. People started listening in the morning and then turned it on in their house and listened all day long. So we actually had a really good moment. Another thing that radio's really done the last few years is realize that we're local. You're not local on the interwebs, and so forth. And socially, you can try to be local, but we're really local, and we still have millions of people listening every week. So it's a really good platform and a way to get the messaging out, and it's great for local businesses, and it's also very economical. And you can pinpoint right away to your audience that you're reaching.
And to our audience, as you build your businesses, as you create your impact like Love Drop, think about the media and the relationships you have, because it's not always a paid relationship. Sometimes you could use the same bartering technique or that relationship to leverage their on-air time. So to get this really good thing out through the radio and to use that platform to get more businesses and to get more first responders to know about this is a great partnership. Jennifer, tell me a little bit about your background and how you got involved with Love Drop.
Of course. So I just have a passion for building relationships and connecting with people, and have worked with Antis before, different capacities, and was at a blood drive for the Red Cross and said, oh my gosh, Corey, please let me know what else you guys are doing, because it was during COVID at the beginning of this. And she said, hey, there's this awesome group. They're doing some California Love Drop stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh, yes, please. So
Right.
that's how I got involved with the group. I went to the first one at a hospital, and then we went to a police station, and from that first one, I was just completely connected and knew that as long as this stuff was going to be going on, I wanted to be involved, and have been ever since.
And talk about how you were able to develop the brand, the Heart, and how you were able to kind of put that on the brown bags.
Sure.
Talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So the first one we went to, we're packaging everything up. Wahoo's, of course, gets all the meals ready, but then we're putting stickers on the bags so that we know the difference between the chicken and the steak. And there's just this little bright orange sticker that says what it is. And I thought, gosh, we can just amp this up a little bit. And
Right.
so tell who we are, who all these partners are, because you've got sponsors that are coming and they're funding us to be able
Right,
to do
right.
it. And so we put California Love Drop and the little logo in the middle. And then each of the founding partners we put around, and just to be able to say, here's who this is coming from, because a lot of times when we're going to these hospitals or these different places, it was not safe for us to do anything other
Sure.
than to show up on the doorstep
Right.
and take some pictures to be able to tell the story for memory book later.
Right.
But that way, when it was taken inside, they had their meal, they
Right.
could look at it and say, wow, California Love Drop,
Right,
who is
right.
this? This is
Yeah.
where this came from.
That is absolutely awesome. Maybe Charles, you could tell us a little bit about what the first line responders, the healthcare workers, and the hardships that they went through and are continuing to go through. I haven't seen the faces like you all have. Can you talk a little bit about the stories or people that you witnessed going through this and some of the hardships?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it was unexpected, sometimes counterintuitive. Sometimes the information that I heard wasn't what I experienced. And so what we experienced was showing up from the very beginning, a year ago, from the very beginning, showing up at hospitals and being told by those that coordinated this that
Right.
these doctors and nurses have just worked a double.
Sure.
So we were used to that. We've seen it from the very beginning. And then we started hearing stories, reading in magazines where they showed pictures of first responders that had damaged skin. And,
wow.
and we thought, well, maybe that's an anomaly. No, we were told by Jeff Heschel, who is the chaplain at Hogue, who was very intimate with us, where we did our first Love Drop. He said that when we bring the meals back there and the doctors and nurses take out they all have damaged skin. And a cool story is Wendy and her relationships. Wendy, I don't want to mess up the name. What's the name of your relationship friend, the mask? Remember the ice rollers?
Carrie Benjamin with Stack Skincare donated ice rollers. I'll let you tell the story. You're so much better.
We're fighting to tell the story
Right,
because it's so exciting. When the nurses came out, and when Wendy was showing them what it was, she pulled it out and she rolled it on her skin. They started giggling, and it was the first time we've heard nurses giggle in the 6 months.
Wow.
And we got to experience that, and
Sure,
that was really
sure,
profound.
sure.
I also got to go to the hospital where my twins were delivered and put into NICU at Chalk, and that's when I really woke up to, wow, the impact of this. That day that I got to say thank you to the same people that brought Charlie and Gracie into this world and kept them safe that first month. And I got to deliver them Wahoos in Yogurtland and this hurrah,
Right,
you know,
right,
and that
right.
moment where they realize we do notice,
Sure,
we do
sure,
care. And that's
sure.
been such a blessing that you've given us that pause. And kind of like, you know, sometimes we can't help it. We get caught in a rut. We don't know what we're looking at. We're lost in thought. And suddenly, boom,
Right.
you're awakened in the moment and you know what matters and your team knows what matters. And it shows up in the quality of your food and the quality of your roofs and the quality of your broadcasts.
Absolutely. Such a great way of bringing it all together. And Charles, with all the philanthropy you were already doing, Wing called you in April of last year. How did you find the time to do this on top of all the projects you're already involved with as it relates to philanthropy?
You know, there's something that we've learned over time, and Wing would maybe say it slightly differently, but I remember Wing actually telling me about 6 years ago, he never says no.
Right.
You know, and it almost makes me emotional thinking about that because, you know, that's not possible until you think it is.
Right.
And when you think of a way to say yes, it's amazing what good relationships of good, honest people working together
Right.
can do for community.
Sure. And we all know at the IMA, the word no is actually like a bad word. So there's always a way of compromise. There's always a way to find a moment to be able to help someone, maybe not under the terms that they expect of you, but there's always something that we can do with what we have in our abilities, our relationships, our technologies, our resources to help people that need our help. And I'm curious to know how this program has evolved, because it started with a few. But when I just saw that list of all the companies, and there's so many people now involved, how were you able to create that sort of momentum? Maybe Wendy and Jennifer can go into that.
I mean, I would love to take any of the credit, but it really is such a group thing. It's very much an Orange County thing, let me tell you, because a lot of these connections stem from these three right here, and the corporations and all that have stepped up. And I think, to be able to say thank you to them on the radio station, to do the shout outs and the videos that Angel does. Angel takes the Heidi and Frank morning shows video, because they video their morning shows, and turns it into a California Love Drop weekly video that can go out to everybody. And Wing's always sure to include the companies and the corporations that are with us, and they all talk about it. It's a small world.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it just builds and it builds. So.
And Jennifer, you're so entrenched in the community. Talk about some of the companies that have come in and the relationships that you have, and where you see this going. Is this something that is going to border out in Orange County, or could this go further into LA and nationally? Just curious.
So definitely think there's no stopping. It's around. We're looking at turning it into a nonprofit at this point. I think that it's a great scalable model to be able to get to other places, and as long as people are willing to come forward and be able to give back, be able to support other people, share the love. That's what we do. We share love with those who are sharing love, right? It'll continue. I don't think it will ever stop. I
Super
hope not,
awesome.
because
Awesome.
it's great.
Well, you can count on the Internet Marketing Association as dedicating Love Drop as one of our 3 designated charitable benefactors at Impact 21, which will be live in Las Vegas on October 1st. I would like to end this interview by thanking Wing for this amazing experience and moment. When you say the words Wing Lam, you ask anybody about this man, there's always a smile on their face. There's always I know him. And think about being a leader like that. Charles, you're very much the same way. Wendy, Jennifer. And I like to associate myself with people like them, because positive energy turns into positive impact. And that's an opportunity that all of you can have on your local communities, be it philanthropy or in the work that you do with your vendors, your employees, the people that you feed. Everything that you touch could have a positive outcome. So I thank you for joining us for Impact, where this is our 24th episode. We have some epic shows coming up, and I thank all of you for joining us today, and have an awesome day. All right, thanks. Cool.
This has been a Sano Shop